why it's unmuted. Did that fix anything? You guys, can somebody let me know if we got sound again? Still no sound? Well, that would be a shame, because that's usually how it works. Do you have this headphone, the microphone maybe? Oh, okay, it's because the internet connection is so bad. Yeah, and it's all blurry, yep, but they're just saying it's really bad, but it's really noisy. Well, let's move over to the other house and see if it gets better on the porch, I guess. Can you grab that? So we don't need the books or whatever? Oh, right. Is that any better? Yeah, that looks better. I mean, it looks like it's... Oh, yeah. Almost there, guys. Alright, well, thank you for bearing with me. I hope it's a little better. It doesn't really look like it got much better. Okay. Alright, so I hope that's better. Again, I apologize. For some reason, the guy has the Wi-Fi, it's like the cabin's like way over there. so can try moving this a little closer, I guess, but maybe I'll see next time if I can set up out there. So where were we at? I guess I was saying that Banos was amazing and the volcano was incredible. But there is a story I want to tell you guys real quick that kind of elucidates something that, I talk about a lot. It gets me in trouble with people sometimes. But this whole thing of the Christian church, how would you say, like co-opting like old pagan holidays and sacred sites to build their cathedrals. And, of course, I'm sure you guys are aware of the reasons why they would do this kind of thing. And so when we were in Banos, and this is also, by the way, going to relate back to the conservation stuff that I want to talk about. So our friend took us to and the irony of the name of that waterfall just hit me, because in English it's the cauldron of the devil, the Pilón del Diablo. And so when we were there, I happened to mention to the guy that brought us there that the waterfalls, Cascadas Sagradas, they're sacred to the indigenous people, particularly the Shuar. Rituals and communicate with the water spirits at the base of these waterfalls throughout the Amazon. And so when we were at the thermal baths, the hot springs at the base of another fall, that it's the thermal baths that gave Banos its name, which, by the way, does not mean bathrooms necessarily. It's just baths. We're soaking, and I noticed this like shrine has been built to the Mother Mary, and they actually, I'm sure I had noticed it before, but I didn't think anything of it. It didn't really, I hadn't heard the story yet, I guess. So it turns out that at some point, the local Catholic priest, and just in case you guys aren't aware of this, the way that the Catholic Church works, it's almost like a government. Well, it is a government. It is a military. Like, they literally have a military, right? One day the Catholic priest tells everyone, like, okay, well, we have seen a vision of the Virgin Mary at the base of this waterfall. And so they changed the name of the waterfall to what is it, the waters of the Blessed Virgin or something. And what I'm getting at with all that is that they do this in order to disconnect the indigenous people and really all cultures from their real power, from their real true connection to nature and spirituality. And they replace it with this hollow, synthetic diversion, which we know is Christianity, that is actually designed to occult and to disrupt genuine gnosis and genuine spiritual experience. And so I just wanted to make note of that I just noticed that once again the Catholic Church, and from my point of view, I really seriously do not think that Catholic priest actually thought that he saw the Virgin Mary. The people that work for the church aren't really Catholic. They don't believe it themselves. And if you doubt that, there's a Religiosity. Bill Mayer made this documentary, and actually goes to the Vatican, and they are so confident that their followers are totally brainwashed that they speak openly about the fact that Christianity is a myth. And I'm talking about the priest at the Vatican. Like, they know that you can tell their followers till they're blue in the face, and it's not going to hurt the church at all. So what I'm saying is that they received orders, to follow this protocol that they've been following for thousands of years, to intervene in the old pagan or indigenous spiritual practices, and to transform their holy places into desecrated holy places that have been usurped by the synagogue of Satan, which is what I call the Catholic Church. Um, and so, uh, yeah, that just and I think one of the reasons that it really kind of affected me is that there is another kind of invasion of empire that is occurring here in Ecuador that is just totally disrupting um, all of our lives on the entire planet, and it has nothing to do with religion and spirituality. Um, yeah, hi Fernando. Yeah, I mean, of course, but in the case of the Catholic Church, it's a concerted uh, effort. Um, it's not just that their followers are misinterpreting or misimplying the teachers of Catholicism. They are actually eroding and corroding and destroying uh, other belief systems, because if you can subjugate the people to the will of the church, which is under the same management as the governments, people are much more likely to follow what they believe is the will of God or the commandments of God, rather than government. And so that's what the whole thing is how it's engineered, and that's what it's about. So the reason that I was already focused on that, though, is that I had just before we left for Banos discovered that Ecuador has auctioned off a third of its rainforest to the Chinese mining companies, and uh, it's it's almost impossible for me to believe that even amongst governments and corporations and these kind of entities that you would think kind of expect this stuff from at this point, it's still hard for me to believe that it's still happening. Um, but yeah, a third of it. And the reality is that here in Ecuador, uh, and Peru and a lot of places, of course, it's a little better with the indigenous, but just the general population. If we, for example, go into town and we don't want a bag for something, like they will put like they'll hand you a plastic bag full of fruits and then put that plastic bag of fruits in a plastic bag and then put that plastic bag in another plastic bag and then tie it all up in a plastic bag and hand you an extra plastic bag to put all your plastic bags in. And if you say, I don't want all this extra basura, I don't want all this garbage, they'll look at you like you've lost your mind. And it's not that they're, bad people or something. I'm not trying to put them down. I'm just saying that they have no concept in a lot of these communities that pollution is bad. I mean, when you walk down to the jungle here, on the side of the road, there'll be it's not people. It's the municipality will just like pull a dump truck up and just dump it in the jungle. Um, so what I'm getting at is that there really is no reverence at all on the part of a lot of the proletariat or the population here, and also the governments will not hesitate to just sell a big tract of the Amazon rainforest to an oil company or to the Chinese miners, um, and so it's still happening, and it's Am I a cop? Yeah, yeah, totally, man. I'm trying to have all you guys. I'm trying to buy drugs so you can send them down here to me in Ecuador where we don't have mail. I mean, I don't know what this guy's if he's joking, like, um, I. Oh, what the fuck, big cop vibes, man. Oh, tinfoil hat guy, of course. Anyways, what was I talking about? Okay, so uh, it's not just that they're destroying the rainforest. The Shuar tell us that the Chinese, not only will they just show up at a Shuar village with bulldozers and say, you guys have 3 or 4 hours to vacate, and we are going to run this village over, whether there are people in it or not. Um, they will rape and murder the women and children in the village. And this is the kind of thing, when you think of like Christianity going through and stealing all the pagan holidays and tearing down the old sacred sites and replacing them with statues of the Virgin Mary and raping and pillaging and killing everyone and burning people at the stake, you think that is thousands of years ago, or at least 1,000 years ago, or at the very, very, very least a few hundred years ago. And the reality is that that is something that is happening right now here in the Ecuadorian rainforest. And um, okay. I'm tripping my mushrooms off right now. That's a good place to be. Where's the UN and the nonprofits that are supposed to advocate for native cultures? That's the thing. Our entire governmental system is a lie, and and I mean all over the planet. But the situation in the U.S. I really didn't want to talk about. It always pisses people off, but the cognitive dissonance on both sides in the United States. Um, and I think a lot of people get angry at me because they think, oh no, I just watched the neighbor's dog walk into our kitchen. I have to get her to do something about that. Um, okay, so uh, will you go get the dog out of the kitchen and close the door or something? Because he's going to eat all of our food. Um, so I'm just going to give you guys a couple of examples of the kind of cognitive dissonance that people are able to maintain throughout their entire lifetimes in a lot of cases. Okay, so let's just look, and I'm only going to talk about this for a second. I'm just going to give a couple of examples and tie that into how that facilitates the destruction of the rainforest, and then we're going to move on away from politics again for a little while, I promise. But for example, the right wing right now is like, the left, the Democrats support criminals. They want to allow criminals. They want to get rid of cops. They just want to facilitate crime. Of course, that's just lunatic bullshit. It makes no sense. But then they're also saying that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are bringing a new world order and trying to put everyone in the entire population into prisons. It can't be both. How can you be that dumb? Like, pick one, And I agree that Biden and Harris are super scary and whatever. But I'm just trying to point out that people are just like, you guys know the sheer numbers of people that are spouting both of those completely contradictory things, you know? So that's how they're able to manipulate people. It's not that people are stupid. It is that, but it's also just the fact that there are so many, it's like market fundamentals, when you're trying to understand the stock market and all the influences. So much at play with the psychology, indoctrination, the influences of the big religions, people's fears, people's hopes. It's just so complicated, and the human mind is so complicated that people can hold these totally contradictory views, and that is in large part how all of this, corruption and it is that people are that stupid, Charles, yes, but it is also the fact that there's a lot of naivety, there's a lot of denial. I said I would go after both sides equally, and I mean it, so let's talk about the left for a second. When George Bush was signing the Patriot Act into law, they were calling him a traitor, they were, it was evil, all of these terrible things, and then they just put the guy that wrote it, that claims to have written it, takes credit for it, in office. They want to get rid of the death penalty. They say that the prison system needs to be reformed, and they just put the most vicious, evil prosecutor, corrupt. She doesn't even deny that she violated people's constitutional rights in order to maintain slave labor for the state. She knew that a guy was innocent and kept him on death row for 18 years. She's not just keeping a guy in prison. She's trying to kill him just to save a little bit of face. And so you can show, a Democrat at the debates actually said all this to both of them, Biden and her. And the Democrats, every single one of them that I've ever pointed it out, they just say that I'm lying or something, It's like, you guys, you see what I'm saying? Like, for those of us that are conscious enough to actually look at the world stage and see what's going on, it is very, very difficult difficult to maintain hope. um, I don't hear a thing. Did we lose sound again? Okay. Uh, yeah, I don't know what's going on with the. Okay, you can hear us. Me. Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. So, I mean, you guys, you know this. What we have to do, though, I mean, all we can really do is look for this shit in ourselves and try to become increasingly tactful at showing people whenever they can't. I mean, this is like work that's got to be done in person because people can just click away and erase you from their consciousness with a click. So as you, I mean, I've been watching it happen here. As soon as I say something that I know there are going to be people that don't like it. I see the ticker drop down one. You know, um, it is really discouraging. But thankfully, we have psychedelics, and that is something that I want to move on to now. Or do you guys want to do the healing plants first? No, let's talk about this for a second. This is inspiring. Um, the This guy's name is Z Dog, and I had never heard of him until the other day. I don't even know how I ended up watching it, but this video came on of this doctor, and he was. I think what got my attention is that the title was like, "This doctor says that doctors shouldn't touch patients unless they've had a psychedelic experience," and I liked the sound of that, and so I watched it, and it actually turned out to be really, really powerful because one of the speaking of like hope, one of the things that has kept me going over the years is that I noticed that people from totally disparate paths would perceive the same metaphysical models behind reality. Um, and there's this certain format that the gnosis would express through these people that is totally identical. It's a very difficult thing to articulate, and it's also very difficult to talk about without sound like one of those people that's saying like we have the answers and we're the only ones that have the answers. So in a way, that's exactly what I'm saying. But it's not the difference. The main difference is that I'm not saying we're the only ones that have the answers. What we're really saying is everyone has the capacity to access the answers, and that any spiritual practice or tradition that requires you to abandon logic, to believe in a book rather than using the most sophisticated technology known to man that's sitting behind your eyeballs to achieve gnosis and to develop spiritually. So for me, I mean, I'm a totally uneducated pseudo white trash guy, right? I mean, I'm self-educated, I guess, but I certainly didn't study medicine at Berkeley or whatever. And um, so in the course of this video, this guy says, he's like, what I've taken away from all this is that the universe is consciousness interacting with consciousness, and somehow that consciousness is informing energy to how to format itself using number. And if you guys have been watching my stuff for a while, I've been saying that for years, exactly like that. And it was, just so explicitly the same description. Um, it really encouraged me, and it was like like an affirmation, or a confirmation that I'm on the right track, and that these things that have been presented to me that I've felt so confident about are not only correct, but they're bubbling up in the minds of people all over the world from all different walks of life And if it is not obstructed, it is going to revolutionize the planet. I've been talking for a while about how one of our greatest powers is the ability to manipulate markets, not just by deciding who gets our dollars, right? Who are we going to empower, and who are we going to destroy by directing that energy? I mean, it's truly, truly, fundamentally magic. Um, the magic is, if magic is defined as the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will, we are all magicians. And the kind of revelation that this Dr. Z Dog had, and that my hillbilly ass has had, and I mean, I've talked to indigenous shaman that have had these visions, and it's important that they bring this stuff up, and then I hear it and I'm like, whoa. If you guys have seen my San Pedro experience video where I talk about the little individual units of consciousness that are sort of like tesseracts, and they're basically just photons. um, I heard that explained to me by a Colombian shaman a year ago. I had this vision, this very specific vision of how consciousness creates the universe, and the shaman starts telling me the same thing. And of course you could say that it's just some archetypal thing in the mind, or a consciousness, or a reaction to the compound in the plant that's generated in this experience. But I think that it's clearly, clearly, clearly something much more profound than that. And also, speaking of the New World Order and Joe Biden and all of these um, lunatics, I can't help but think, and you guys, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but like I say all the time, only because I don't think that the conspiracy theorists could possibly know as much as they think they know. I think that okay, look, let's just think about this for a second. Right before COVID and all of this crazy shit happened, there was this huge wave of conspiracy theorists are all idiots no matter what they're saying propaganda on Facebook. As soon as people had taken it and it was absorbed into the collective, there's a word in French, um, and the perception of the collective, it was just gone. And there was also this massive wave of anti-vaxxers are idiots right before COVID hit. And I just, I mean, I want to dismiss stuff like that, but it also seems a bit ridiculous to think that there's no correlation between these huge waves of public opinion influencing information. I mean, come on. So what I'm saying is that it's hard for me to imagine that this newfound power and this new level of consciousness that is manifesting in people, that is coming to us through ayahuasca and San Pedro and meditation and yoga and all of these practices, combined with the fact that people like Elon Musk have figured out, and that's where I was started ranting about this, was that I've been talking for a while about how we need to manipulate markets, and then the Robin Hood thing happened, and then Musk is like playing with the value of Bitcoin just by uttering a word or a sentence. And if you guys have been following this channel for any amount of time, I mean, I've been saying that I I really suspect that the conscious revolution, as I call it, is that we're going to find support in incredible and unlikely places. And I think that what happened with Robinhood and what Elon Musk has been doing with the crypto and stuff. I mean, clearly we have a tremendous amount of power, and it's hard for me to disregard the fact that we find ourselves practically locked in our houses with Patriot Act Joe and Kamala Harris, the sociopath, lunatic, fucking prosecutor, in the White House, just in time to meet this wave of higher consciousness that is like rolling through the planet, peeling open fucking third eyes, squeegeeing them, It's just hard to think that there isn't a correlation with all of this. And what I'm saying is that we know through because of entrainment and even just from more reductionist, deterministic means of communication and influence that you can't really change one mind without a ripple effect influencing everyone and everything everywhere. I mean, yeah, and that's true. The word conspiracy theory was created by the CIA back in the, I mean, I thought it was the 70s, but yeah, I mean, oh yeah, no, it was the Kennedy thing. That is how that happened. You are correct. Um, well, yeah, Fernando. I mean, there's been a massive consciousness shift occurring for already much more than 15 years, and I think that we are in. I know. I don't even know why I just said I think. I know that we are in an accelerated phase of that process right now. And as much as I would like to think otherwise, I mean, I would love to be wrong and find out that Biden and Harris are wonderful people that want to liberate mankind and end poverty and all this shit. But look, any politician that says that to you is lying through their fucking teeth. And the reason is that if there's no poverty, no one's going to join the military. Just like run that through your head a couple times. The status quo, the pyramid structure of society is maintained for reasons. Poverty does not need to be exist. The greatest minds among us, that's another thing. You know, people, the type of stuff I've been saying over the last few minutes, people want to roll their eyes and call you a conspiracy theorist. But if you look at the people who are IQ tested or demonstrably the smartest people that have lived in modern history, they all talk more like me about this stuff than like a mainstream liberal or conservative or whatever. I mean, you know, it's incredible to me that people base their ontology on the average person's perception defining things rather than on the greatest geniuses in history. Um, this is how, you know, mediocrity has come to define our entire culture, and it's really frightening that that's the standard, that's the metric. Like, what do all the other idiots think? Okay, well, that's got to be reality. No, look at the highest at the top of the pyramid and ask the eye what it thinks. You know, Aldous Huxley, you know, Einstein, Orwell, even. I mean, um, none of these people, Terence McKenna, you know. None of them think the government is their friend. You know, let's just put it that way and leave it at that. Um, yeah, and I think the old power structure, it knows it's dying, and that's why, you know, if there wasn't some kind of conspiracy to suppress consciousness and to um, what would you say, like stifle the ability of humanity to live for the realization of its highest potential as the standard. Uh, Tulsi Gabbard and what's that old Bernie Sanders? Even the conservatives kind of liked those two because they were telling the truth about the rest of the Democrats. You know, these motherfuckers are just as evil as the other side. You know, I mean, especially Tulsi Gabbard, you know, and this is not just a woman, this is an indigenous woman that they could have put in the White House. You know, I mean, that says it all. That says it all. And, you know, one more time, the cognitive dissonance is terrifying because all these liberals and left-wing people, you know, just we want to get rid of that racist Donald Trump. And then, you know, when I started hearing this, I'm not on either side, so I just started looking, you know, on YouTube. I couldn't find Donald Trump saying anything explicitly racist, and I found hours of Biden. Even he had to drop out of the race because he said something horrifically racist about Barack Obama. I mean, it was insanely racist, and he still does it. He's so fundamentally racist, he doesn't even know when he's saying something racist. That's why he fucks up all the time. So people are just really in a coma. And these plant medicines are a solution to that. It's very difficult, I think, um, to have these experiences and then go back to sleep. Almost no one does that. And speaking of plant medicine and liberation, we are going to move on. This is a stick of ayahuasca I just found the other day. I've been shaking at the camera like like it's my like talking stick or something in the classroom. Um, we have to. I mean, you guys, we know what we're up against. We know how ugly it looks. We know how insane everyone is. But we have to try to do something anyways. And so one of the big ones is to extract ourselves from dependence on big pharma, big oil, um, and that's another crazy thing about the right wing in the United States. They are totally convinced that they are exposing the deep state evil people, and really they're just like spewing their propaganda all day long. Like global warming's a hoax. That's another reason that I brought up religion earlier. One of the reasons that these Christian cultures and Muslim cultures are so destructive to the environment is because they believe fundamentally that it is a construct of an evil, deceptive force, and that at the very least, God has given us all of the animals and all of the trees and everything to just use, and it's all temporary, and it comes from an evil lord, a demiurgos or Satan or whatever, and so they don't value it, and there is definitely a connection between the wanton disregard of the environment and these old religious systems. So before I get too tired, I want to actually let's stick with that a little bit. I have this crazy metaphysical thing that I want to share with you guys that relates to all this. So the abundance in the rainforest it's you really have to go and walk around with an indigenous person, which Enrica and I were lucky enough to do the other day. I don't know if she was indigenous or not. I didn't ask, but I mean she knew a lot about the plants out there, and man. Um, um, there is a lot of it's just incredible, like everything that you could possibly need is there within a few feet of you, and the evidence for intelligence inherent in the organization, and this is what in the title I mentioned symmetry theory just because I don't have any other language for it yet. um, I don't even know if we'll get to that. Well, I might have to save it for the next one. Um, but what I'm saying is that oftentimes when you need two plants, um, you'll find them right next to each other. In the United States, when I was a kid, we knew that whenever you found yourself accidentally rolling around in poison ivy or whatever, um, and there's this flower. A little yellow flower that you could crush and wipe, and then you wouldn't get the poison ivy. And it was always growing within 50 feet of the poison ivy. And so a couple of days ago, we were walking down to the dam, the local river here, and there was a brush pile on the side of the road. The municipality had gone through and cleaned up a hillside, and it's crazy because you can see they're like whacking down all these plants, but they're not allowed to cut the orchids. So there's this like orchids. It looks like almost like it's mowed, but it's jungle, so it's a mess. But it's short, and then there's an orchid, and then everything else is cut down. I mean, it's really dumb. I don't understand why they don't just let it be jungle up until the sidewalk and whatever. But So in the brush pile on the side of the road, which wasn't very long, maybe 7 feet, we found this small ayahuasca vine, already cut up. I don't know if I can even show you the little flower, but I mean, I'm sure you've seen it before. Interestingly, and I guess not surprisingly, okoyahe, this leaf, uh, Diplopterus cabarena, which is what we use in Ecuador in place of chacruno, which doesn't grow here. And also, I think that this is a much better option because it contains 5-MeO-DMT as well. Um, and so it's a much more powerful experience. Um, but this chaliponga is what the Quechua call it. Um, was just buried in with the ayahuasca. And no, they are not uncommon here. But I have searched around the area pretty extensively since that time, and I have not seen any more ayahuasca and only some small Diplopterus vines. And so that's how nature works. It's the two plants that we needed were literally like on top of each other, and the density of and the number of plants that are there, the chances of that sort of thing just happening randomly. I mean, I guess but it's consistent. That's the thing too, and it's not just that it's consistent in Virginia with poison ivy and antidote. It's consistent with ayahuasca and cholipanga in the Ecuadorian Amazon. Another great example that I can give you guys of that is this. I hope, and I'm sorry there's delay, so when I look at my laptop to try to see whether something is focused, it takes me a second. And I really want you guys to be able to see this clearly. I don't know if it's going to happen though. Maybe. No, maybe not. Well, maybe for a second, but what I'm getting at there is that if you could see this clearly, and I'm trying to think if I posted, maybe I'll post a picture in the comments later, but what I was showing you is that this is a very rare type of ayahuasca called Ayahuasca de los Brujos, or Banisteriopsis mercata. I found it in the Andes Mountains where it really should have been growing a little while back, and it has a jaguar pattern that is like, I mean, it's exactly a jaguar pattern. Like, if you stretched it out and made it big and it was furry, it would be jaguar skin. It's like exactly the same pattern. And jaguar are cats. Cats aren't like dogs. Dogs will eat grass. They're not really omnivorous, but cats just don't eat plants. And one of the reasons they don't eat plants is that they get their green nutrients partly digested. It's not that they don't need them, but they get them by eating the stomach and the intestines, the guts, and the partly digested plant material in their prey. And so there is a video that exists. Maybe I'll put that in a link to that in the comments. It's also going to be featured in my how to prepare ayahuasca at home video, which is probably the next one that I will make. But what I'm getting at here is that jaguars eat ayahuasca, and they eat it for the effect. And that's what the video features, is this jaguar is eating the ayahuasca and then rolling around on the ground. And so it's just this like deterministic reductionist state of mind that, or religious. Isn't that ridiculous? Like, it's like two ends of the same pole, very hermetic. But both categories, they just destroy the things for the same reason. When I find evidence that that is not real, it is not blind, dumb matter just randomly coagulating through random whatever. I mean, I'm not saying that's not part of the process, but it's not the whole thing. It's like this plant that has a jaguar pattern in its design is the only plant that is consumed by a jaguar. And of course, I don't think that the shaman that associated the jaguar spirit with ayahuasca, that most of them had seen jaguars eating ayahuasca, or really probably any of them. I mean, jaguar, even for an indigenous person that knows how to walk, are very difficult to get close to. you know. So, um, well, usually they roll around in catnip, but you know what I'm saying. It's not. Cats don't eat fucking plants, and for jaguars to eat ayahuasca, you know, uh, I feel like that is just one of those extraordinary manifestations of this um, proof that is so obvious to indigenous cultures that that the white man or modern people or whatever just laugh at it, and it's here. I'll give you another incredible example. I got so angry with this guy. Um, I had just done a bunch of research myself, and it was partly prompted by the fact that my partner was pregnant or in the early, maybe breastfeeding. I think maybe pregnant, um, and it's not that she had planned to take plant medicine or anything. I can't remember why. Maybe we had just looked at the information we could find or something. I don't know, but something prompted me to investigate and see, has anyone done research on indigenous people that consume mescaline or ayahuasca throughout pregnancy, throughout breastfeeding. And I found a study that was done on Hoykel women in northern Mexico and southern Texas, involving 60 people, and they consume a lot of peyote. It's not like it's just occasional thing. Lots and lots of peyote, and mescaline is 500 times as toxic by weight as LSD, and so they found no abnormalities in any of the children over, like, I think the study was 12 years or something, um, and so uh, this guy was, for some reason, I think it was something about adolescence and addiction, and he was saying the research hasn't been done to establish that these things, that ayahuasca is safe for children. And I said something like, well, for 5,000 years, some of these tribes have been, with some of the indigenous people here, the first substance that the baby ever consumes is a drop of ayahuasca on the nipple. We're not talking about baby feeding or bottle feeding babies with ayahuasca, but just the drop. And the indigenous tell us that it's like a vaccine, and actually modern research confirms that it boosts the immune system incredibly. And so what he was saying is, that we haven't applied a few months, maybe a year, of our techniques of analysis. Because I was arguing that, look, we have 5,000 years of evidence. We have these Hoykel people that consume the peyote throughout pregnancy and breastfeeding, and we have studied them, and there is no abnormality in the children. And then with the ayahuasca, and I, after going back and forth with this for a while, it just hit me how to explain this to him. And I said, oh, that's what it was. He said, I don't mean any disrespect, but we haven't done enough clinical studies. And I said, okay, you don't mean any disrespect. So what you're telling me is that your idea of respect is that a few years of your culture's techniques of analysis are more valuable and say more than 5,000 years of indigenous practice, and you think you're being respectful. I just, like, what the fuck is wrong with people? So, where I'm going with that is I have some plants, other than the ayahuasca, here on the table in front of me. And you know, you guys, next time I'll try to get closer to the Wi-Fi, the router, all the way out there. It's because the guy lives way over there, so we're just too far away. By the way, do me a favor, you guys. Like, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon if you can. Really trying to rally some support because we have to raise money. We're going into the jungle with the Shuar to a Shuar community. Where I'm going to actually, the first thing that I have to do probably this week is help them to rebuild some of the communities because there's been a tremendous amount of rain lately and they have been washed out and damaged. And I was really sick the last couple of weeks, which is why I bought all of this medicinal plant material that I have here that I'm about to talk about. And we're going to have to save most of the symmetry theory thing for next week. But basically, the gist of it is that, and this is another thing that Dr. Z-Dog mentioned, is that I had this idea about how symmetry in the underlying code, and I'm not saying that the universe is a simulation, but it still has a sort of code or programming in the same sort of way that a computer does. Everything that we do is modeled on these universal mechanisms or systems and governed by the same laws, so they're basically the same thing. Synchronicity and a lot of these manifestations, even of plants growing close together that work together, I think can be explained by symmetry, and I think that it's also good evidence that the universe is not blind, dumb, and deterministic, at least not entirely. And so what I was saying about the plant medicines is that we went to this indigenous market maybe a week ago because I have suffered from a multitude of health problems for a number of years. And I think it started with, let's see where to go, dragon's blood. I mean, there's almost no point. I can see how blurry this is. It really, in case you've never seen sangre de drago, is how they say it in, or how it's the Spanish. In English, it's blood of the dragon. It actually does look a lot like blood. But for me, that was the first plant I started researching, where I noticed that everything that the indigenous said, that it accelerated the healing of wounds, that it was anti-cancer, that it was anti-diarrheal, that it was well, let's see here. What else? Pain and swelling of insect bites, reduces tumors, stomach ulcers, herpes infection, and it goes on. You know, that's not it. But what almost all of these articles that since then I have looked at to try to compare what claims that the indigenous have made about these plants versus what clinical research says, and almost without fail, let's see if this one has how the guy, well, I don't need to read it, I remember. It's just basically that the clinical research substantiates the ethnobotanical uses, and so far that has been the case in, I think, every single plant that I've looked at, and there are a few discrepancies and variations, or not variations, but, you know, like indigenous say this does something and clinical research says no, it doesn't. But I think some of that is that our techniques of analysis are not necessarily going to elucidate this stuff for us, not because the plant doesn't do the thing in question, but because the way that we are analyzing doesn't show it to us. And an example of that is capsaicin, I think is how you say it, the chemical in hot peppers that burns your mouth. Recently, a study was done where they said that it was not antimicrobial, it doesn't flush the blood and all this, and what they were saying is that if you take it and put it in a petri dish with some germs, it's not going to kill them. And that's not necessarily the point. When you eat a bunch of hot peppers and all that mucus starts coming out of your nose, your body's flushing. You're getting stuff out of it. So that's kind of what I mean, that even when our methods of analysis don't necessarily corroborate indigenous claims in reference to the medicine, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not correct in some way. And overwhelmingly, they do. I mean, to an extent that actually surprised me, because even as a person that has respect for indigenous knowledge and is very suspicious and skeptical of big pharma and just modern culture in general, um, I dismissed a lot of it as maybe superstition or wishful thinking or just misunderstanding or whatever. And the more I have looked into this stuff, um, it's just, you know, it's all confirmed whenever they look at it. So uh, I I am going to track my progress and I'm going to start consuming these plants. When you buy this stuff here, this one is 8 different plants. All it says on the bottle is ocho plantas. Um, and this one has chichuasa and uña de gato and a whole bunch of others. And I've almost consumed it all. You just take a few drops in the morning and in the evening. And by the way, I'm going to put out a very extensive, detailed video about these plants and how they have affected my health very soon. We were lucky enough when we went to the market, there was a Quechua woman, that was very much willing to talk to us, and we went around her entire booth and went through every single plant, and she told us all of the uses. She told me some surprising things about ayahuasca that I had never heard in terms of the just physical benefits, which actually have been substantiated. And one of the main things I'm noticing that all of these plants, at least from this part of the Amazon, pretty much do the same thing. It's mostly about inflammation, and including brain inflammation. A study was just done. I was just reading it right before the live stream on ayahuasca, and they said that it is this reduction of inflammation that causes this instant change in depressive states or instantaneous improvements in depressive states. And this is also why sometimes it doesn't really matter what kind of integration you do. If you don't continue to address the inflammation or get to the source of it, the depression can return regardless of the ayahuasca. And I also think that this is one of the reasons that sometimes people get worse after taking ayahuasca. There are two main reasons. One is that they needed to take it 3 or 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 11 times. For me, the initial ayahuasca experiences did almost nothing in terms of visions, and it was all just physical. And then I think it deals with the psychological layers, and then emotional layers, and then spiritual layers. It's said in the Air Force that if a pilot goes up and crashes, you have to send him back up immediately, or he may never fly again. And it can sound counterintuitive and even frighten people away, I think, if someone says to them, like, okay, you had almost a psychotic break last night when you took the ayahuasca, you feel way worse, borderline suicidal now, and what you need to do is drink twice as much tonight and then 3 times as much tomorrow night. And of course, it's reasonable that people would think, like, yikes, that doesn't make it. It does make sense. And the thing is, that's why we need people that are genuine shamans, and I think that we don't need to return totally to the traditional ways. The universe is going somewhere. When modern understandings and techniques dovetail with ancient knowledge coming from the jungle, if it's done properly, these things will accentuate and catalyze each other and become a new form that is superior to either Western medicine or the ancient forms of shamanism. And so I'm just mentioning that because I think that having shamans that are trained both in understanding how consciousness and energy work, and also understand psychology and have a background and that kind of stuff, so that in under circumstances like the one I just described, someone would be able to discern, is this the kind of psychotic break that would be exacerbated by giving more ayahuasca, or is it the type of situation where the person has not peeled enough layers and the ayahuasca has more work to do? And I've seen situations where the person facilitating did not really have the capacity to make that kind of judgment. I'm not sure I understand this question. What type of transportation did you use across your trip? What does that mean? Um, yeah, Lyme disease. That's funny, man. The symmetry theory. I have to talk about it now a little bit. Actually, let's get through these plants because this ties back into conservation, and I'm trying to maintain some conceptual continuity here. So, dragon's blood, and this is another example of how nature communicates with us. Oftentimes, things that are good for some particular application look like they are. For example, see, that's why I tried to do this in a building over there where we didn't have good enough internet. The highway's right behind me outside. Um, Lion's mane kind of looks like a brain, builds the brain like almost nothing known to man, right? Combining some lion's mane with some psilocybin mushrooms, you're going to experience increased brain-derived neurotrophic factor and catalyzed neurogenesis and enhanced neuroplasticity, you know, and the mycelium as well. I mean, it's like a big bundle of neurons, you know. I mean, nature shows us, like I was saying with the jaguar and the ayahuasca pattern, you know. But in the case of dragon's blood, it looks just like blood. And one of the things that it does is that it affects the coagulative capacity of the blood cells and heals wounds. And we heard a Shuar shaman talking about it the other day, and he said that if menstruation has stopped, it will start it again. My partner had not had a period since our child was born, and she drank it, and like 2 days later, you know, she's normal again. So that is just amazing, you know. I mean, it looks like blood, and that's its main avenue of, you know, expression or activity. I'm trying to think what other plants I have here that I should talk about. Oh, the conservation thing. Again, I know you guys, it's not very clear out there, but this piece of bark that I'm holding in my hand is a big problem in Ecuador right now. It is the like national tree of Ecuador. It's cascarilla, which means the husk, and it's traditionally used a lot for diarrhea and fever and bronchitis. And so when COVID came along, because it is a source of natural quinine, the rumor was that it gets rid of COVID. And in my experience, that's true. I mean, I didn't get tested, but I was sick for maybe 2 weeks. I still have no taste. I mean, all COVID symptoms. And I took some of this plant, and now I don't have any symptoms anymore. So, you know, it could be a coincidence. Maybe I didn't have COVID, but it kind of seems to be true. But it's a big problem. And it's not just a problem with this plant. When you walk to the jungle here in Shell, which is not like Iquitos, right? There are hardly any people here. There's no tourism. It's not like there's a bunch of people out, you know, next to a big city or... but if you go not just to Iquitos, like here in Puyo, which is, you know, a fraction of the population and it doesn't have the tourism, it occurred to me almost immediately that there was an awful lot of these plants. Now that these things are becoming more and more popular, and especially with COVID, people are going into the forest and cutting enough of these plants to supply entire cities and the rest of the world. And so now, on top of having to fight the Chinese mines, on top of having to fight the oil companies and the cattle ranchers and everything else, Um, and it's kind of a necessary evil because we have to distance ourselves from big pharma to break our addiction, to stop empowering the old elite dick faces. Um, but we're wiping apparently this tree out. It's mainly from the Loja province, which is where we came from before we came here. Um, but and again, these plants have proven to be extremely effective. So it's really a difficult catch-22 kind of situation, because we don't want to wipe the plants out. Obviously, we don't want to keep destroying the jungle, but we do want to break our addiction with big pharma. Um, and it is incredible to me that we have so much doubt still about whether these plants work because, I mean, before ethnobotany became like Terrence McKenna drinking ayahuasca and writing books about it, it used to be uh, um, guys were sent by pharmaceutical companies to live with indigenous people and find out what was good for what, and then they would synthesize drugs based on the compounds in the plants, and then not pay the indigenous anything, and then tear their forest down. But I mean, that's where we've been getting these pharmaceuticals or the precursors uh, for these compounds ever since there's been a pharmaceutical industry. And in my experience, these plants are at least as effective. And so, what I'm hoping that I can do, and I have people that are putting me in touch with uh, people that are interested in conservation down here, and they are owning land and trying to create farms. I'm hoping that we can start commercially producing these medicines outside of the jungle, so that we can mitigate some of the wild harvesting that is going on, because apparently it's getting out of control to the extent that it's actually threatening the continued existence of some of these plants. So, another one of the, I don't know if you guys can see this either. It's really cool looking. I'm really disappointed about the quality of the video, but it's called chuchawasi in most places. Here, the Quechua say chuchuasa, and when you see it on the bottle, it is definitely written with an A. Um, Yeah, man, the crypto. I just hope that you are going after Ethereum, and I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Dogecoin, whatever it is. Some of these um, um, coins that are not as energy consumptive as Bitcoin. Bitcoin uses the same amount of um, electricity in a day that the entire country of Argentina does. Um, so I it's another one of those catch-22 things. What we have to do as conscious people is get rich. It's true, and then empower other people with that wealth. Um, so I totally, I mean, and the destabilization of the centralized powers by liberating the currency from their centralization is one of the most powerful tools that we have. And the way that Elon Musk has been flexing and messing with those markets. I mean, can you imagine the power that guy has? He can make people rich or break them with a word. Um, and the thing is, like, collectively, we are Elon Musks, and we need to remember that and organize very carefully because that Patriot Act that Biden wrote will put you in prison forever very easily without a trial or a phone call or a lawyer if you don't watch it. So, see you down there soon. I hope so, man. And that's, you guys, if you haven't been to the Amazon, you have to come. Come here. It is amazing. I started to talk about the plant walk that we took the other day, and every few feet there is a plant that will cure something. The girl would tear off a piece of a plant, a leaf, and give it to us to taste, and it was one that was exactly like ajo, garlic in English. There was another that was like a hot pepper. There was another plant where you break the stem open, and there are these little tiny ants that taste just like lemon. I mean, sweet too. Like little tiny ant. One of them, it would just explode in your mouth, and the flavor would just coat your mouth. And you know, it's terpenes. It's the same um, chemicals that create the flavors in the actual fruits. So just extraordinary, you know. And then you'd walk another couple feet, and there would be a vine that you could just pull into a million pieces and weave stuff out of it without you don't have to do anything to it. You know, it's already got the tensile strength, and yeah, we'll come down. You know, we can go mushroom picking for sure. Uh, Before I leave the crypto thing, oh man, maybe I forgot the name of it. I put a link in my last live stream. There's somebody doing something with Ethereum, um, and it has nothing to do with mining. And their tokens, they're not coins, they're calling them tokens, are worth more than Bitcoin at the moment. There's a link in the last, just go to my last live stream, and you can connect with that. I am currently in Ecuador, sorry, in the Pastaza province. Yes, YFI. You're in finance. Yep. And I really like their collective mind way of doing business. If whether you have $1,000,000 or $100, if you have an equal vote, so it levels the playing field in that sense. I mean, and then you can present an idea, and then everyone votes on it, and then you get free tokens if your idea. And I know a lot of platforms. I have a bunch of Pi, which is still free right now. You guys can contact me about how to get involved with that. But yeah, man, do it. Get rich and empower the right people. I'm always talking about how if spiritual people think they don't want money, you know, they're like, money is evil. You don't want money. And I understand, man. You get a little bit of enlightenment. You don't want to be greedy, but there are conditions in this world that are dictated to us and not by us. And money is power. That's one of them. So if we want to change how the world is structured, we have to change who has the money, and that's why I talk about that type of shit all the time. You know, because it historically, the people that became spiritual. Just hitchhike around in the United States and smell like patchouli or whatever, and they don't want money. And that's not going to do it. That's why we're still in this quagmire or whatever. Yeah. Well, check it out. Like I said, there's a link in the description. So let's keep talking about. Did I talk about the chuchawasi? I don't think I did. So this is the one. This bark here, chuchawasa. This one and Uña de Gato, and by the way, some of these plants are very often combined with ayahuasca because their efficacy is dramatically increased, because the fundamental format, I guess, the operating system, the thing that lies behind or more fundamental than chemical constituents are energetic constituents, right? The particles of quantum physics, and so ayahuasca puts the consciousness in a more receptive, open, sensitive state to the influence of the molecules in the plants, because it's not really a chemical exchange. It is on one level, but it is fundamentally an energetic exchange. And so Uña de Gato is one of the, I'll talk about that one in a second, but that's one of the plants that is often combined with ayahuasca. Bobinsana is my favorite admixture plant, and I have not looked at medical uses for that one, because I was just content to know that it opens the heart in a way that is so impressive and powerful that this is why I have a family. It's incredible. And by the way, my son Nagual, who is named after it's a Nahuatl word or a spirit that transforms into a jaguar or a wolf. Um, he has just started picking Bobinsana. He sees the flowers and he's like, nah, nah. You know, he's 15 months and he's already picking admixture plants. You know, on his own. I can't walk by a Bobinsana bush, and I mean that flower is why he exists. And interestingly, the same family of plants, the Mimosa Tree, the flower has been my favorite flowers and my mother's since I was a child. Um, Bobinsana is the name of the. I can't remember the Latin name at the moment. Can you find it in Europe? You can order it online. Just Google Bobinsana. You can get it. Well, yeah, I felt like God while on mushroom or something else, but that's because I am God, and everything is. The way that I understand the universe is that nothing became conscious, which may have been a bad bargain. It destroyed the unity of nothingness, basically. Um, and, uh, I mean, long story short, I don't want to get too much into this at the moment, but it's like there's just this energy and consciousness, and that's all everything is. So it's like, you know, there's no, this idea that, like, you know, like Christians think a cross, even though you're not supposed to have any graven images or whatever, you know, is like more holy than this bark. It's like, is your toenail holier than your fingernail or a hair follicle, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's all equal to the Most High God. This is why I don't believe in negative entities. I've been out there as far as I could be. I have messed around with all kinds of different magical systems. Our will is sovereign and equal to that of the Most High, because it is the Most High's will. There is no, you know, that any truly enlightened being, I think, would tell you that what you think of as God really doesn't have any will. It's not. It's totally neutral, and that's why something is happening. You know, again, I don't want to go too far down this metaphysical rabbit hole because that's not really what we're talking about tonight. But um, you know, so I hope that answers that. No, here, I'll write it. Bobinsana. Um, yeah, well, the story in the unity of nothingness. Um, if you think about it, this is how the paradox that is in everything got there, I guess, because everything's a reflection of this one process. Um, so the only possible unity is nothingness. As soon as you have a thing in space, you have two things. And so this old mystical concept about this is that there was this nothing, and you know, it's something we can't even really conceptualize, and then it just sort of became aware, and that spark of consciousness created the vision, because now there's energy and nothingness. So there's two things. Like, however you want to think about it, that 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 thought, I am, which is hey in Hebrew. Um, uh, that's how knowledge created the fall. You know, like when the old Christian thing of demonizing consciousness by equating it with Lucifer, um, which is what they did. You guys can look. I've made videos about this subject, and I think it's literally true, and that it was intentional. Um, they made this process that was just, it was just a process into something that is morally, um, you know what I mean? They turned it into like this moral thing of like falling from grace, and in reality, it's just that consciousness, uh, any any movement, any will, anything other than nothingness, is this thing, the light bearer, you know, that they had demonized. And anyways, that's a whole nother subject. Yeah, well, what I say about chaos and entropy is that evil isn't real. That's another reason that, I mean, it is real. It happens. It's real in that sense. But um, evil, what we think of as evil, is just a manifestation of chaos and entropy. And so the tendency. Okay, there we go. Um, so the tendency for like, you experience this coherence in your life, this sense of destiny. Things work out in improbable ways. Um, but then you just get hit by a car and you die. And I think this is what people have such a hard time reconciling, that there is order and there's also chaos. Yes, you have a destiny. Yes, you have fate. But there's also chaos. So you might just get randomly killed tomorrow. Totally might happen. But that doesn't mean that the universe is blind and dumb either. It means that the interplay of antinomies is what the existence of the universe is predicated upon, and the laws of the universe are as they are because the universe can't be with any other set of laws, and that's it. It's that simple. It's not, now you can forgive God and, understand why babies get run over by tanks and stuff. It's, you know what I mean? I'm just making an extreme example, but that's how I understand things, and I'm pretty sure it's correct. This is what the gnosis tells us, basically. This type of stuff. But I never talked about this chuchawasa, did I? So it's another case where when I looked it up to see what the clinical studies said, I just felt like, why am I even doing this? Because all it said was clinical research just substantiates the ethnobotanical uses. So it's an aphrodisiac. It is a powerful immune system stimulant. It attacks tumors and anti-inflammatory. And again, that's something if you're trying to heal something, this is the common denominator in all of this stuff. This is also used for pain. There's a drink that you can get in the jungle. It's very common. I can't remember what the Spanish translates basically like get up and go, because it kills your pain. It gives you some energy. It increases libido, boosts the immune system, cures your cancer, and there are arthritis drugs that are being made from it, and it's supposed to aid in digestion. And this plant in particular seems to be the basis for the overwhelming majority of the plants, because when you listen to like Quechua or Shuar or the indigenous people, at least in my area, talk about this stuff, it's not, they revere nature as a teacher, but it's specifically, or the thing that they express the deepest appreciation for is that the plants taught them about mixing plants. It's not about one plant. Like ayahuasca, it doesn't really do you a whole lot of good. Well, it does, but not nearly as much if you don't have the admixture plant. And the admixture plant, which also I have discovered has medical uses, the chaliponga, the Diplopterus cabrarena, apparently is very good for high cholesterol and a whole host of other stuff. And so I want to get to these other two. I'm getting tired. My throat is wearing out. I've been talking way longer than I planned. Please, you guys, hit the like button if you're new tuning in. We've been demonetized, so the algorithm is ignoring my videos, and our views are plummeting. Tourism is down. We really do need your support. So if you can, head over to Patreon and kick us something before the end of the month, because I can't get it after the 28th. Okay, so this plant doesn't really smell like much, pretty nondescript. It's just, wood from a vine, basically, but it's uña de gato, which is the claw of the cat. Cat's claw is what you'll usually see bottled up in places in the States. That it's sold pretty commonly. Thank you, man. Thank you so much, Rick. We're really trying to fight the good fight here, man, and we appreciate your support. It's funny. People will tell me all the time, and I appreciate it. I'm not like, genuinely like hearing this. People will say like, I trust you because you are not really selling anything in particular, and and it's like, well, if you don't want me to start trying to sell you stuff, then you gotta support us on Patreon, because I put a lot of time into this. Anyways, the cat's claw. This one I've always intuitively had a lot of faith in, and it's another example I think of how nature shows us what things do. Um, it has claws. I wish I had a piece of the vine. Um, yeah, Zindra, I think that okay. The Lyme. People have reported completely curing Lyme disease with 21 days of ayahuasca, almost straight, and there are a number of possible reasons for that. I actually know a lot about this. I had an ex-girlfriend that last time you mentioned this, I was going to tell this story, and I will real quick. Um, and consciousness, right? So what happens when you are, I don't want to call it awakened just because it's like overused or something, but when you have, broken out of your programming, your matrix mind, um, you experience this synchronicity or symmetry in the underlying programming very, very, very frequently, to the extent that it can it does drive people nuts. You think you're losing your mind, especially if you don't understand why it's happening or what is happening. Luckily for most people, by the time you have gotten to the point where you're having these experiences very consistently, you have also connected with your intuition, and you understand the universal mind as teacher and guide, to the extent that you won't completely lose your mind. But for overcoming all of this matrix programming and stuff, it's be very challenging, and it is. That's I'm sure all of you have heard people make the comparison of psychosis and spiritual awakening. If you're not wondering whether it's psychosis at times, it's not real. You're tricking yourself. But it's been happening a lot lately with that the synchronicity, I guess. And earlier today, I was thinking of this ex of mine that had Lyme disease, um, and just wishing I had never met her, because it was so toxic. And I'm sure you know that. I mean, I'm not saying necessarily that you're toxic, but people that have Lyme disease tend to go crazy, and it was a really sad thing to watch. I think she also had narcissistic personality disorder, so there was more to it than just Lyme disease. But she used to say to me all the time, I had gone to where she grew up, Mendocino County. She used to say, "This is where dreams come to die." And I had just remembered her saying that over and over again, and just thought, I wish I had never heard her say that, because I was in a compromised place in my life at the time, and her negativity really didn't help, right? So I put on this Netflix documentary a few minutes later, and the woman, the narrator, is like, "This is where dreams come to die." Um, and so those kind of experiences, and I know that was a little bit off subject now, because last time you mentioned something that reminded me of her, I would tell the story and it would have fit better. But those kind of experiences, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the symmetry experiences in consciousness. But yes, okay, so man, I feel like I could make you and this is how it's done. You have to use certain admixture plants with ayahuasca in order to facilitate the curing of different physical maladies. So no devil? What? So no devil. Yeah, through my old videos, and you'll find a good answer. Or I don't know, that, what is it called? You'll figure it out. It's pretty obvious, but I have made videos that explain that as. No, my ex did not heal herself. But let me follow this ayahuasca thing out. The way that the shaman described cat's claw to me is that it's like it goes through the system, and it hooks its claws into whatever shouldn't be there and drags it out. And the vine actually has these hooks that come out to like both sides, like kind of like a double. And so I did the research, and that is a pretty apt description. And what I'm saying, Zindra, is that I think that cat's claw, or uña de gato, with ayahuasca, would probably be the thing to possibly cure the Lyme disease, and absolutely, definitely, without question, any one of these plants that I have sitting in front of me would help, because one of the reasons for the discomfort that's associated with Lyme disease, and particularly the swelling in the brain um, that causes the psychological problems and the depression, um, and also some of the bone damage uh, from the inflammation in the marrow, in the uh, I know that you're in Sweden and you don't have a safe source of ayahuasca, and I don't know exactly how much cat's claw you would you know what I mean, but I think it's very, very likely that it is true that through mechanisms that are not totally understood, that ayahuasca is a very good treatment for Lyme disease, and particularly with, I just happen to be holding the cat's claw, uh, but I feel like that analogy of like hooking the spirochetes and dragging them out um, is probably pretty apt. Uh, okay, so I have one more plant here to talk about, and it's not actually a plant, as you can see. You guys can probably see that okay. Not really much to, in fact, I need to drink a little, and it's terrible. It smells like, kind of like bad cheese and Pepto-Bismol or something. But I don't know where this name came from. I know that the Shuar and the Quechua uh, did not call it Dr. Santi or Dr. Sandy. If you're speaking to Quechua, they will say Dr. Sandy. The Shuar say Dr. Santi, and neither of those names are Shuar or Quechua because it's doctor. You know, so um, my guess is that the indigenous name is Sandi something 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 really long, and because it is said to cure everything known to man, it is the most revered and the most how would you say, like the cure-all. It's the tree that is used for the most things, and as you can see, it's like a milk, like a latex that is harvested just by cutting the tree and bottling it up like maple syrup. And uh, this one I don't think is very well known outside of indigenous cultures. I could be wrong. What I need to do is find out what the Latin name of the tree is and do some research. But when I Googled Dr. Santi, Dr. Sandy, Shuar Sandy, Shuar, medicinal tree, milk, everything I could think of, I didn't find any references to this tree or this extract of the tree anywhere online. So yeah, it's called Santi or Dr. Sandy, but that's not that's that's what they call it now. Actually, you know what? Oh man, the Quechua woman we interviewed at the. I just need to review the video because my Spanish isn't great, I didn't really understand uh, everything that was being said to me. I did understand a lot of it, but not enough. But I'm willing to bet that she gave another name. Oh well, they did have the bottles labeled as Dr. Sandy there too. So I'll have to do some more research. But I'm really curious to see if this is something that's known to Western medicine, because the claims that they're making about this particular extract are they are greater than what they say about uña de gato and all of these other plants that have turned out to be true. So if the precedent continues, then this sap that I just took a sip of is probably an extraordinarily powerful medicine, which I need. And what I was going to say earlier and did not, because I'm starting to run out of steam and my mind is melting. It's getting late. I need to go eat dinner. But I am going to. I'm taking a. I'll make a more specific video, but I'm taking a regimen of the Chuchuasa, the Cascarilla, the Dr. Santi, the Dragon's Blood, and this picture you guys have seen me taking sips of here and there is Guayusa, which is a holly tree, or it's related to the holly tree, and the leaves contain antioxidants and nicotine and caffeine and a whole host of alkaloids that are said to cleanse the blood, and it's used for lucid dreaming by the Quechua, and every morning the Saraguru and some of the other Quechua speaking peoples here will gather to talk about their dreams. The Shuar do this as well. The dreams are very, very important to the indigenous people here. And the Guayusa, when you go around to the various shops, they have sort of like a lei. It's just Guayusa leaves on a string. And there's also some coca in there. If you guys aren't familiar with the medicinal properties of coca, it's actually quite surprising. It's not just about cocaine. There is it is very cleansing for the blood, but also it is one of the richest, if not the richest, by weight in vitamins and minerals of any plant on Earth, and has a whole host of other benefits. Like I said, you guys can check out my old video about that. I can't talk anymore. Thank you guys so much for watching. Next time we will talk about the symmetry a little bit more in my pi squared ideas. And thank you so much, Fernando, for the kind words, man. I hope I can inspire, you guys to, if you're trapped in the matrix, don't. You'll be all right. Positivity, guided by intelligence, squared by intuition. You have to know your purpose, but once you know what your true purpose is, commit every breath, every thought to that singular purpose, and the universe will support you. At least that's been my experience. And I'm not saying it's been easy, and especially since COVID, but we have done far better than any rational person, I think, would believe if I were to tell the whole story. So, again, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you again very soon. Please hit the like button, share, subscribe, and check out our Patreon, link in the description.